This is SciStarter Live. This is a weekly web series there where we talk about a specific project about or in citizen science or participatory science or whatever you would like to refer to it as, where we invite a project leader or project team to come on and talk to us about what they're working on and answer questions from you all. So in this case, I've done this project actually, and my data is sitting in front of me waiting to be input because I keep forgetting to input it, but I will get to it. And so if you have questions about the experience too, I'm happy to answer based on what I did, which was mostly watch Casino Royale and pet my dog while measuring myself every 30 minutes. Anyway, so we'll go ahead and get started, but just to give you a reiteration of the title, this is about eating popcorn for science, a study that can help you learn how we can improve the quality of life for ovarian cancer survivors or cancer survivors in general. So I'll go ahead and move us forward. So if you're not familiar with who I am already, my name is Emma. I am the manager of public outreach and programs at SciStarter. I'm joined also by Roland, who's our little robot friend in the corner here. If you can see his screen anyway. And he is the senior manager of web and program quality assurance, and also will be helping us out with links in the chat and assisting with any technical issues and sending messages to the Facebook comments, etc. So if you need any assistance, he is the one to say hello to, and he just said hi in the chat. Hi. Awesome. Also with us are two guests. So we have Meg Wilkinson, who had a very awesome career in geographic information systems and conservation, which is kind of a mouthful for me for that first one. GIS is what I've heard before, and I'm glad to actually know the term for it now. And also an ovarian cancer herself. So I'll let her do more of the introduction of what this means for the Omentum project in a moment here. Now, also with us, we have Spencer Phelps, who is a native of upstate New York and has worked for over 20 years in the medical field, and is currently the director of clinical research with St. Peter's Health Partners and St. Joseph's Health. So we'll hear from him from the medical side of things, his take on all this information with the Omentum project and eating popcorn. So I'm going to pause there. I've given you the background. I'll go ahead and turn the mic over to Meg and Spencer. I'll go ahead and stop my screen share too so they can introduce themselves once again personally, and then you can keep moving. All right.
Thank you. And I'm going to share my screen and open up the slide deck. And I should have been following along with you. Oops, that's not
That's okay. And I think the first thing anyway is a poll. So while you're organizing that, we can bring up that first one if you'd like.
Oh, that'd be great. Okay, yeah. We want to go into slideshow mode.
And Roland, this is before this SciStarter Live, have you ever heard of the Omentum? Yeah, perfect. Awesome. I can tell you right now I have, but only because I already did the project and I had never heard of it until I had a conversation with Meg. So excellent. Like-minded people. Yeah, absolutely. We got a couple more seconds, but it looks like a pretty resounding, most often, no, they had not heard about it.
They are not alone.
Yeah, it's okay. All right, great. I'll go ahead and end that poll so we can get to the answer. Yeah, so 94% of the respondents say they had never heard of it. So that's good. We're starting fresh. I think you're a couple polls behind, actually. Yeah, there we go. Keep moving.
There we go. I couldn't move while the poll was up.
Oh, that's weird.
Okay.
All right, so we got the answer to that one. All right, next one. Now a quiz. The Omentum is part of the immune system. True or false? I don't know. I feel like I know, but I also am thinking that maybe I forgot. We'll find out. We're pretty split on this one. That's interesting. A couple more of you to participate. Get to the 90s range. 3, 2, 1. Okay, fine. All right. Looks like most people, as in 56%, think it's true, and some of us think it's false.
Good.
What do we think?
Okay, and then there we go. Oops. Oh. There we are. Sorry, it's the poll thing.
Last one. In cows, sheep, and pigs, the Omentum is called caul fat or lace fat. Is it true or false? Wow. Okay, you hadn't heard of it, and now a bunch of you are like, true. Yeah, absolutely. I think someone was Googling right after seeing that slide. Awesome. Are you going to give us the answer to both after this one?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Awesome. All right, great. Okay, most people think it's true. Awesome. Sweet. All right, we're getting really certain about our answers. Cool. All right. I think that. You should be able to see your screen again, hopefully.
Yep, there we go. Okay. Title slide again, processing salt with or without an omentum, and is there a statistically significant difference processing salt with an omentum versus without an omentum? So we're going to cover 3 sections. Spence is going to give an overview about the omentum and why research is needed, and then I'll tell some about my story and how we got to the omentum project, and then we will specifically cover the Eat Popcorn for Science. So Spence, you're up.
Super. Thanks, Meg. Right. So leading back to our last poll question, any cooks in the group? So what is the omentum? That's how we're leading out here because there's unless you're sort of a biology head, you may not the omentum may not resonate with you. But so the omentum it's an organ that lies in the abdomen, and it is comprised of a lot of what we're seeing right here, caul fat or lace fat, which I honestly, before doing this, I knew what the omentum was, but I wasn't sure what caul fat or lace fat was. But the reason why Meg asked if there's any cooks, this can be used, typically as sort of you can think of it as a wrapper almost in certain things, almost like a sausage. And certainly, though, if meat products are not your thing, don't think too long and hard about that. That's just a fact about what kind of fat we're talking about. So when we think about the omentum, you think of a beer belly, and especially in guys like myself, right? You can call it what you like, and gut sticking out, spare tire, or whatever else. But what you're seeing there, that's the omentum. Okay. Now, obviously, there's some who have some more than others, and technically, the omentum, if you were looking through, specific anatomy, we're talking about the greater omentum, and that's one of the main fat storage deposits in the body. It thickens with the accumulating fat, expanding the skin into that well-known round shape that we see there. And if you were to, look up Wikipedia, which I would gather many of you probably already have, you'd see terms such as apron of fat, policeman of the abdomen, biological duct tape. And yes, the other poll answer is that it is part of the immune system, part of the lymphatic system. So we see this, layer of fat that is very vascular, that contains a lot of lymphatic system to help transport hormones and fluids and blood throughout the system and in that general area. And if you want some more detailed information, Meg's website, theomentumproject.org, is probably as comprehensive a source as there is on the topic of the science that is available on the omentum. But you should note that there is a paucity of science on the omentum. There isn't an awful lot out there, but there has been some talk and some, interesting hypotheses put out there, as we'll see right here, some of which are being tested from brain cancer research, lymphedema studies. Lymphedema is when our lymph nodes get really filled with fluid, especially in our legs, and legs can get really swollen. So lymphedema can be an issue in certain things, and even Alzheimer's disease research. So there is a lot of interest into trying to find out what some of, what, and if there is, what those underpinnings of the omentum's function can help to, alleviate or support in our body's biological processes. Now, when it comes to our project here, we are focusing on the omentum's role in cancer, right? So ovarian cancer, specifically cells circulating in the blood, also preferentially metastasize to the omentum. And when, of course, we think about, the physiological location of the ovaries right there underneath the omentum. And so you can picture that as sort of a neighboring organ that could be exposed. And also, when we think about metastases, anything that's very blood rich and circulating can be affected. So omentum and ovarian cancer can certainly be related in that way. And so for that reason, omentectomy, speaking of words that are difficult to pronounce, right? So that would be a procedure where we're removing the omentum, right? So that's common in ovarian cancer patients, as surgeons will have to get in order to reach the ovaries, we'll have to affect the omentum, and then potentially, if the omentum is affected, of course, remove the omentum in entirety. So, right, we come into this topic of tonsils, appendix, and some of these other sort of like vestibular, organs, or there's things like the tonsils which we can live without. Your appendix, which you can live without. Your adenoids, you can live without. There's can be some ramifications, and it's important to know that tonsils have been closely related to the lymphatic system, and physicians have gone back and forth somewhat recently as to when to remove tonsils. They were a little bit more eager when I was younger. It's a little bit less the case now. The appendix helps repopulate gut microbiome after diarrhea, right? So there's even a role for our appendix. So that starts to lead us into, some of the underpinnings for why this project studying the omentum is so important, because there's very little known about the normal omentum and its roles in the system. And the only way we get the answer to those questions is with research. And we're going to be focusing specifically on cancer survivors, also comparing them with others to try to see if we can identify some of those features. And I say we, but because I usually try to speak inclusively, but this is Meg's project. So it's, I have very little to do with this except for trying to help facilitate it. So it's an honor to be here and be a part of this.
Thank you, Spencer.
My pleasure.
So now I will shift to the second part here, a little about my story and about the Omentum project. And I just want to acknowledge to Rob, we joke that if you do put in the word Omentum into text or Word or Facebook, it will autocorrect to momentum, which is exactly what happened when he did the chat. So we're hoping one day that all those softwares will recognize the word omentum. All right, so a little bit about me and how we got to the Omentum project. So in 2014, I will tell you more in a little bit, but I did have symptoms and then I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And in 2023, so last year, I did have a recurrence after being 8 years, what they call NED, no evidence of disease. I am now, I did do surgery and chemo last year. I'm now a year out from chemo, and all numbers and scans look good at this time. So first, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on ovarian cancer, because a lot of people don't know that much about this specific cancer. It is a little bit less common than some other cancers. So 1 in 87 women will be diagnosed with ovarian cancer in their lifetime. One big misconception is that there is no early detection test. A pap smear checks for cervical cancer, but does not check for ovarian cancer. The 5-year survival rate, if it's caught early at stage 1 or stage 2, is pretty good, 90% or 70%. Those are very good cancer 5-year survival rates. At stage 3 or 4, the 5-year survival rate at the moment is 25%. And at the moment, because there is no early detection test, and I'll talk a little bit more about the vague symptoms that present with this cancer, 80% of cases are found at late stage. So if you, if you want to learn more about ovarian cancer, the website there has some good information, and a foundation, Tina's Wish Foundation also has some really good information on risk factors and symptoms. The most common way to remember the symptoms for ovarian cancer is an acronym called BEAT, B-E-A-T, which stands for bloating, eating, abdominal pain, and toilet issues. I always like to clarify that the bloating is not gaseous, and if anyone is experiencing that and does decide to go to their primary care, I highly encourage them to use a word like abdominal swelling instead and clarify that it's not gas. The eating can range anywhere from nausea to feeling full quickly. The abdominal pain can be abdomen or back pain, and the toilet issues can be urinary bowel or urinary or bowel. So you can imagine, you know, a woman goes to her doctor with any of these symptoms, ovarian cancer is probably not the first thing the doctor thinks of. So that's part of why it's diagnosed at late stages most of the time at this time. So back to me and how did we get to the Omentum Project? So I did have vague symptoms in 2014. I did go to my doctor and cancer was not on his radar. Thankfully, I did have a routine GYN visit about 6 months later, and that is how my ovarian cancer diagnosis evolved. So one thing I've noticed is a lot of women, after they hear my story, they pull out their calendar to see when was the last time they went to their GYN visit, and many people make that appointment. So I did have surgery, hysterectomy, and omentectomy. I was very lucky. I was stage 2, so I did surgery and chemo, and generally very good prognosis, even with a recurrence. The omentectomy on my surgical report was the first time I saw the word. So, so then I finished chemo in 2015, and I took a work trip in 2016, and I had that same abdominal swelling that I'd had in 2014. And I looked 4 months pregnant again, and I was bloated and scared, and I went immediately to my oncologist. So they did find out that it was not cancer. So that was, you know, really good. But about 10 days later, I was like, this still is not a good way of living. I had a lot of GI issues that really affected my quality of life. So then I spent, 18 months doing my own research, food journal, GI doctors. At one point I was diagnosed with IBS. And I landed on some very helpful medical professionals. And at the end of all that, it was determined that living without an omentum is at least a piece of the puzzle for me and my digestive issues. So then I learned, things that helped. So I call them my suite of three E's. Eat strategically, exercise daily, energize lymph flow. So some of you may remember from biology class, the lymphatic system. To move lymph, you have to either use gravity or muscle. It does not move on its own. So all of these things help with that. Eat strategically, close to the ground, homemade from scratch. If I travel, I bring my own cooler. Exercise, because that cardio and the diaphragm are helpful in moving lymph, and anything else I can do to energize lymph flow, including compression pants and aquatic helps a lot. Getting in the water, that water pressure helps a lot. So I've learned a lot. There's so much more to learn, and I was pretty sure at some point that I was not the only one. So anecdotally, over those years, several nurses mentioned to me that ovarian cancer survivors are well known to have digestive issues. And of course, people who've been diagnosed at stage 3 or stage 4 have often had a section of their digestive tract removed. So surely that is a piece of the puzzle. But, maybe the omentum is another piece of the puzzle. And then I had specific conversations with other stage 1 and stage 2 ovarian cancer survivors who had not had any of their digestive tract removed. And they also experienced many digestive issues. So again, we felt, well, that may be a piece of this puzzle, because digestion is complex. So by that point, I'd made enough connections. We formed a small informal group, and the Omentum Project mission is to improve the quality of life for cancer survivors living without an omentum through awareness, education, and research. So that's how we went from my world to this, where we are now. And we decided we wanted to do a specific research project. And those of you on this call, I'm sure, are more familiar with science than the average person. And you have to really tease down to a specific thing in order to test it in a research. So as I said, digestion is complex. So we had to get much more specific than that. And we did have anecdotal information from many different cancer survivors living without an omentum about reaction to salty foods. So then we were like, yay, salt, we can focus on salt. So is there a difference processing salt without an omentum? And if yes, then that would provide information to cancer survivors that avoiding salt might help them. And that is very empowering. So that's our goal. Okay, so now I'm shifting to the actual study, which it's technically called processing salt with or without an omentum, but we refer to it as Eat Popcorn for Science. So when we decided to get to this point and do some projects, my day job had been at, and I just retired. So I worked in the conservation field, and I worked for the New York Natural Heritage Program. And I specifically worked with the IMAP Invasives database, which is a citizen science data collection for invasive species. So science needed. I'm like, well, let's go to citizen science. And I had no idea that it's less common in health and medicine world than in the conservation world. And Emma mentioned that if you pick that category on SciStarter, only about 10% of SciStarter projects fall in the human health or medicine category. One of those reasons probably is because of this thing called an IRB. So for anyone who has not heard of an IRB, it stands for Institutional Review Board. And that is an amazing topic, and there's some wonderful documentaries on it about why they exist. But any research project that is using humans, such as ours, has to be approved by an IRB committee. They review the protocols, the safety, the eligibility, the consent, the ethics, and more. So for us, actually, the biggest thing, and I'll talk more about this when we get into the part 1, part 2, some of you are probably familiar with, the people who qualify for our study are randomly assigned to high sodium, or what I call lower sodium. It's still not low. And eating high sodium can be really, really dangerous for some people. So that was thoroughly reviewed by the IRB, and that's part of why our part 1 eligibility is so comprehensive. So with this study, you do have an opportunity to participate in one of those 10% of SciStarter projects on the Human Health Citizen Science Project. So as I mentioned, the study is IRB approved. We wouldn't have been able to do that without the help of a local cancer group called the Nancy B. Clemente Cancer Fund. And we do need 200 women with an omentum and 200 women without an omentum to eat popcorn for science. So as I mentioned, the first step is this part 1 eligibility. And at the moment, that's running about a quarter of people who take that survey are eligible to participate in the actual citizen science at home project. So if you don't qualify, if you have a coworker or a friend, a relative, please share information and help us find people. Anyone who would be harmed by a very large consumption of salt is basically not eligible for the study. The citizen science project itself, for those that are eligible, is a one-time commitment. You can do it anytime in the comfort of your own home, and people are randomly assigned to either lower sodium or high sodium. So they're the same except for one little thing, a bouillon cube. So the lower sodium and the high sodium both have the exact same, 4.4 ounce, oh, I'm blurred, 4.4 ounce bag of popcorn. So it's a huge bag and you have to eat the entire bag. And then both groups have an 8-ounce glass of water, but the high sodium puts a specific bouillon cube in that water, which that's what makes it high sodium. And then you need tape measure, scale, and time to take the measurements every 30 minutes up to the 3-hour mark. So it is a 3-hour commitment. And you really, you have to set a timer and make sure you do those measurements at every 30 minutes to the best of your ability. And then that last step, as Emma mentioned, is submitting the online data, which is super, super important. But thank you so much for doing it. Go you. And both groups get a link for a worksheet that they can print out. So that helps as you're going through the measurements. You can write them down and then sit down and put them in online. And they are the same except for that Urbox bouillon cube. So yes, we want to emphasize submitting the data. And I also want to mention, I should say, everyone involved is volunteering time. Everybody's been wonderful, the people that have helped us along the way. And one of the people who is helping us is with the statistical analysis is a professor out at Rochester Institute of Technology. And, we're hoping we will share results widely at the end of the study. We're certainly hoping that we learn something to empower cancer survivors, but we have a responsibility to share widely no matter what the results are. And I do want to emphasize another thing that the IRB monitors is your privacy. So all personally identifiable information is protected and all results are anonymized. And I do always like to mention the partners that have helped us. We couldn't be here without an incredible team of people that are willing to put in time and effort to see this forward. And then I know the webinar will live in perpetuity on SciStarter. So if by chance we have completed this particular study at the time that you are listening to this video, please contact us. We certainly have every intention to do another project after this. So please reach out to us. Okay, and then we have a poll.
And while you do that, while we're waiting for poll respondees, which Roland will drop in at some point, I wanted to ask the question, since you are planning on doing more, is there any thought to what the next research questions are?
Oh, that is a great question. There are more than we can do, obviously. One idea is also with human people and also some angle of digestion, maybe focusing on fats instead of salts. There is some recent research that shows that the lymphatic system actually helps digest, I think it's long chain fatty acids. So we're thinking if that might be an angle. And then another one, if there's a institution that does rat studies, we would just love for somebody to do a rat study where they just get, 24 rats and give 12 an omentectomy and monitor them. Do they back up lymph? Does their energy change? Does their temperature change? Just a full evaluation.
Yeah.
So two ideas off the top of our head. There's many more. If there's a physical therapist person, the whole idea of cardio could be studied with humans. Like, does cardio indeed improve symptoms? And a couple others along those lines.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'm very curious to see if this, like, what the results are, because I mean, as someone who has an omentum at this point in time, it was interesting to see how limited my reactions were. Like, my body was not invested. It was like, yeah, whatever, salt. Made me think a little bit about how much salt I intake usually. So I had questions about that experience too. But before I ask more questions, we have the response for the poll. And it looks like for those of you who responded, you are super interested in taking part. So I'm super excited for you to do so. The eligibility survey, by the way, for all of you who said they would take part 1 eligibility survey, I dropped that in the chat a moment ago. So you can do that while you're online with us if you'd like. You are more than welcome to.
Yeah,
It's
it
really
only takes like a minute. Yeah.
It's pretty easy. And it's
Oh,
all
I should mention, Emma, your emails that you sent out before this, several people have taken it from SciStarter already, and they put that in their comments that they heard about it from SciStarter, that they did part 1. So
Yeah.
thank you.
awesome. Yeah, absolutely. And we did so there is potentially a post. I don't know if it went out already. I should probably know. But there was a post of my experience doing so, not including the submitting the data, because again, I'm the worst. It's sitting in front of me. I will do it after this event. But it's as a part of that process, I videotaped myself doing some of it. So if you wander around some social media, I forget which one it's on or if it's on yet, but you'll see that at some point where it's just me goofing around on a camera and watching Casino Royale. It's definitely a movie day type of activity. So for anyone who just wants an excuse to sit and eat popcorn and watch a movie, this is your moment.
Casino Royale could be a confounding variable. We'll have to let our IT know.
Made my heart race too much. If it helps, I've seen that movie probably a billion times. It was also Father's Day, and it's one of his favorite James Bond movies, so I've seen it.
And the length is good, right? It's long.
Right.
Yeah, it's a really long movie. I'd forgotten. I mean, it wasn't long enough for the 3 hours, but I had only like
A little
30 minutes left, basically. It was pretty well set up. Yeah. For participation, let me actually double check. Yeah, the next one is Q&A. Sorry, I wanted to make sure I wasn't cutting you off from other things. But I did want to ask questions about the experience of doing the project, just in case there were things that I should have considered during the moment. Or while doing it, but it didn't occur to me until in the moment that I wasn't sure if I was measuring my knees correctly.
Oh,
I know it sounds silly.
We had hours of discussion on this with the statistical analysis professor, and statistics are just so amazing. So, you did fine. So, really, he talked about the fact that, like, even people who make an error in doing the tape measure part, they are consistent. So, yeah. And even those errors are in a bell curve. So all good.
Okay, that is super, super nice to hear. I love that even within something like this, you're almost crowdsourcing a set of numbers within yourself for the measurements. So it kind of leveled out in the right way. Yeah, I ended up, for anyone who was interested, I ended up sitting and just putting my leg up on the table and measuring. And then halfway through, I was like, wait, am I supposed to be standing up for this to let like my weight settle in a normal gravitational way or what? So I just decided on that.
I think that's a great point, because your leg would measure different if it was up high or down low. But as long as you always did it the same way, the change in that measurement would be caught.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I think I did it the same way every single time. I didn't have any strong deviation from that, which I mean is leading to the other the other question I had is I was curious about so I had to do I did the high sodium one. So I did drink the dissolved bouillon cube, which basically tasted like poorly made soup. It was it's pretty funny. I don't think it was added into the social media post, but my recording of me drinking it was like, aha!
Yeah.
What am I doing? And so if you end up doing the high sodium, everyone, beware. Yeah, so my question about that is, the type of bouillon cube, was that chosen based on like the exact amount of sodium and depending on brands? Does it matter if it's warm water or cold water? I refrigerated mine and now I'm worried that was an error. Also,
Oh,
it tastes weird having it refrigerated. Don't do that. Drink it lukewarm.
I do think it would taste best warm, but I don't think it would affect anything cold. But yes, we picked specifically a bouillon cube that's available nationwide.
Mhm.
And yeah, had the amount of sodium we were looking for. And there is both a vegetarian and a chicken bouillon cube option.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. So that's good. I ended up having to get mine from Walmart for anyone who is looking to think about this now, which is hopefully all of you. Hopefully all of you. And I had, oh gosh, what was the other question? Oh, there is a spot on the, actually, could you scooch back a couple slides to the graph that you fill out for the data? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so about 120 minutes in, it asks did you drink a glass of water? And I wasn't sure if that was at that moment you're allowed to drink a glass of water, or if you were drinking a glass of water at any point during this, it's like now you need to admit it so we know to take that into consideration as a variable.
Wow, isn't that a great point? It is meant to be an option. You have the ability. I will go back and reread some of the words and see if we can make that clearer. Yes, at 120 minutes, if you're super thirsty, it is okay to drink a glass of water. If you already drank a glass of water in this time period, put that in like the comment sheet. But
Okay.
yeah,
I
that's a
ended
good question. I will try to word that better. Uh, did you choose at this time?
to drink this water. And now that I know, for anyone who does do this, I was very thirsty. So you might want to be drinking that glass of water. Just
Yeah, that was one of the things that um yes, as several of us who were testing it felt that we had to offer that 3 hours after that much salt was really unacceptably thirsty. So,
it was, I mean, I was not, I guess I wasn't surprised exactly, but having done that, now I know that the other group, the lower sodium, had not a bouillon cube, but just drank a glass of water. I'm jealous a little bit because that I was like, that definitely increases the thirst factor for sure.
some people get nauseous from drinking that level of bouillon cube. So you would not want to do that if you were in that category.
Mhm. I will say I was shocked to have not felt nauseous. I was certain I was going to be marking it as, yes, I feel nauseous, but I think popcorn is just a leveler for me. Love
Yeah, it
popcorn.
absorbs.
It absorbs, good, it's tasty, it's great. I don't know if you have this data, you might not at this point, but I'm just curious how close we are to getting to that 200 point for each of the groups, or which one you're in more need of that we can help promote to our family.
Thank you for asking. And that is where Spencer, one angle why Spencer is involved in this project at this time. Um, so two answers to that. First, we have, as I said, about a quarter, so over 400 people have started the eligibility survey. About 130 are eligible. And then the act of eating the popcorn and submitting the data is also a big lift for people. So only like a quarter of that group have actually eaten the popcorn and put the data in. So one of my jobs in July will be to send out reminders to people to please do that. Another thing is we do need the 200 women with an omentum and the 200 women without an omentum. And as you can guess, finding women who are stage 1 or stage 2 cancer survivors and had an omentectomy is a really small group of people. Because if you had stage 3 or stage 4 cancer, that's not eligible to participate. So Spencer and St. Peter's Health Partner are going to help us reach out specifically to women who've had an omentectomy. So we're hoping that will help. But yes, if people are listening and they know someone who had ovarian cancer, a lot of times people don't know if they actually had an omentectomy and they have to go back and check their surgical report. But if anyone listening does have friends or relatives or coworkers who had ovarian cancer and might be interested in participating, please encourage them to find out about the project. Spencer, do you want to add anything to finding people with omentectomy?
I mean, I think that's all great advice. I think even to, right, you and I have discussed the potential of, when we think of anything that's occurred in that abdominal region, especially colorectal surgeries. If you think of someone who may have, had colon cancer or some severe cases of inflammatory bowel disease, such as Crohn's and colitis, certainly can involve, unfortunately, elements of colectomies, and then the omentum can be an innocent bystander that can be affected or removed in that process. But the omentum is also should be known that it can be helpful to surgeons at times, and be as a helpful attacher. One of the odd, another piece to the odd omentum story. I haven't come up with a good caricature for what the omentum would be in relation to the other organs, but it's starting to come together. I'm hoping that
Hey.
finishes by the end of this. But
Hey.
this is calling that out just because, Meg, right? Are we looking for partial omentectomy or total omentectomy type patients?
Well, that's a great question. I'll also back up. You mentioned something else I forgot. Okay. Yes, if someone had a partial, there's a choice for that, partial or full. So,
Okay, super.
Yeah.
And the partial omentectomy would put them in that omentectomy group, correct?
Yes, and then again, the statistics guys can run stats against that. So,
Right.
I know what I was thinking. You mentioned that other people might have their omentum removed, and anyone who's had their omentum removed for cancer, bariatric surgery, whatever, they might be interested in our website, even if they can't qualify for the study, because they may actually have issues with salty food or other digestive issues, and they may not realize that some of that possibly is attributable to living without an omentum.
That's right. And I can attest that, Meg's site might outrank like a Mayo Clinic site for the omentum, because the omentum has such limited breadth of knowledge around it, and Meg's really dedicated. A lot of this work is not just to help answer some of these questions and bridge that gap with anything, but also to help provide and be a reference, a collection of knowledge of just what is available out there. Thank you for sharing that website. That's great. Perfect. It's really well, curated, super resource. So I encourage you, even if
Don't do recipes, go to articles.
Yeah.
Sorry, the recipes page is not beautiful yet. So at the top here, we have like 7 that we feature, but then go farther down. What Spencer is referring to is we have, I don't know, maybe 75 peer-reviewed articles that you can get to from our webpage. And they cover everything from, the reason it's been studied so much in cancer because of its ability to gather cancer cells, all the way to the 3 amazing ones, the regenerative, Spencer, the duct tape regenerative surgery. There's an article on that. There's also a couple that I need to add that I haven't yet. There's some recent research on how the fat cells in the omentum are different than other fat cells in the body. So yes, that's a really good way to find a lot of articles quickly.
It really is. And and this was wonderful to observe from my standpoint, having worked in research for about 15 human subject research, mostly clinical trials. The back and forth that I witnessed on this call in this presentation is every bit a microcosm of what the day in the life is of anyone working in the research in human subject research industry, which there is one, oddly enough. So don't hesitate to ask questions, because we do find quite commonly, it's important that you understand, the ask or what it is in front of you, so that you can, give as truthful an answer as you can. And given that there is kind of limited information, regardless, there is no bad research when it comes to this sort of things, because there's always insights. And it is okay if there is not a link to salt, or maybe a weaker link than one would have hoped, obviously, because so that is the lily pad to the next set of studies. So, Meg, I cannot. This is honestly, this is such a cool project. So thank you so much for having us be a part of this.
Well, thank you, and thank you, SciStarter and SciStarter's community. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Oh, I loved it. I mean, I loved being a part of it. I'm bummed at its necessity of existing, but it's really cool to be able to take the fact that this is a project that was taken on by you, Meg. Like it's a really big deal and very something that should be copied by those who are of this mindset of like, we can do something about this. There's just not enough research. I can't tell you how many times being the science podcast listener that I am, every time a podcaster is like, yeah, there's no research on this one thing, I'm like, why not? Someone needs to be really interested. Let's do it. And so you making that step and creating this program and building the community around it is really, what's the word for it? It's impactful to many lives, and it makes you a role model to a lot of people. So I'm very excited for the future of what we find out. I'll be crossing my fingers for this and future rat studies, possibly.
Well, thank you all.
Yeah. If there aren't any more questions, or let me just double check the chat just in case I missed any, but if you have any questions, is there, oh no, we have some ineligible folks. Oh, that's okay. Spread the word. Spread the word instead. We're glad that
I took it too. I was ineligible. So, you're not alone.
Wait, hold on.
I can take it. I can sign up. I'm ineligible.
The first question is about born with ovaries.
But yeah, okay. I was gonna say, I'm like, wait, I'm going to share my screen one more time. If there are any more questions, hey, Madeline's eligible. Awesome. Welcome to the party. We'll find out if you end up with high sodium. Let me know how the bouillon cube tastes. Let's see if you can do it better.
We could do a whole social media thing just on the picture of people's faces when they're drinking the bouillon cube.
I'll try to take a screenshot of mine and post it. It is pretty like, ah! It's not even that bad. Like you should expect what it is. Like it's honestly not, it's not crazy, but it is a moment of, it's weird that I'm drinking this right now. I can't believe I'm putting this in my mouth right now. There was something else. Oh, for anyone who is eligible, the one piece of advice I do want to give, because it wasn't mentioned and I don't think it needs to be mentioned, but the warm water to dissolve the bouillon cube, yes, definitely warm water, but I left it to dissolve over a pretty long period of time while I was prepping other things at the time. So if you are planning on doing it, you might want to set that out earlier than you think. That's my one piece.
You could heat it in the microwave.
Heat it even more. I was worried I was going to do something to it and it would mess things up, but that's good. Yeah, heat it up. Yeah, be aware that it takes effort to make it dissolve. I have that issue just in cooking with bouillon cubes in general, so maybe that's just I don't do it right. I don't do it right. All right, I'm going to share my screen once more while we're 3 minutes out. I'll go ahead and share. Oh, oops. There we go. I'm going to share, if you want to connect with the Omentum Project on Facebook or Instagram, with the best Instagram name I've ever heard, Omentum Momentum. It's a good one. And the Omentum Project on Facebook. Those are there for you. And they would really appreciate more followers and such too, I assume. For next up events, which actually backtracking, thank you both for being here, by the way. Meg and Spencer, I appreciate all your thoughts, ideas, and bringing this to the public. I'm very excited for you both. So yeah, thank you for being here.
Thanks for the opportunity. This is great.
Absolutely. Anytime. When you have results, you can come back and tell us about them. So our calendar for the future, brain is coming back into shape here. So we do have these events once a week. Generally speaking, we have been doing live archive episodes in which we've already done the topic. And so we're just sending it out to you all as, hey, remember this? It's super relevant to this week. So for example, get ready for Shark Week. Shark Week is at the beginning of July. If anyone needed the update on when it starts, it's July 7th. And then later on, we have Moth Week, National Moth Week, which maybe you don't know about yet, but now you know. National Moth Week is on the 20th to the 28th of July. And that just means you get to go outside at night with a light on and stare at moths and take pictures of them and become gosh, what is it called? Entomologist?
And
It is entomologist, right?
yes,
I keep confusing them with the word one. Etymologist is the word one. Entomologist. So if you want to be an entomologist, here's your chance. Learn about moths. My favorite are caterpillars. So if they turn into moths, obviously that means they're awesome. So it should be fun. There's also a live event where we're actually going to be talking to you all on July 9th, in which we're talking about Fish Story, which is a Zooniverse project. That one, we're actually going to be doing the project in real time during this event. And so we'd love to have you all on so we can show just how much of an impact we can make at one moment in time. So it should be fun. Also, the Moth Week one is archived, but one of the following weeks, we're actually going to have that team on to share how this year went. This year's event went. And so if you'd like to be a part of that and then come back and tell us about what you did, that's your chance to do so. So keep an eye out. If you need any of those info pieces to learn more, Roland just sent in the chat the SciStarter Live blog post that'll keep you updated as well, and our email. Lastly, if you do have any further questions, we have a lot of resources on SciStarter. And I did want to drop, was there an email that we can drop in the chat for reaching out to the Momentum Project?
Roland did put it in once, but he can certainly put it again. Yes, it's theomentumproject@gmail.com. It's 4 up at this time.
Awesome. Perfect. Yeah. Okay. So if you need answers to more questions, you can reach out. I'll also be sending out a follow-up email with the recording of this for you all to have tomorrow. So look forward to that. And we look forward to seeing you at the next event that we're live. Otherwise, we also have a post-event survey. So if you want to share your thoughts on what you want to see next, we'd love to hear them and plan them out for the future. So otherwise, you all can have a wonderful rest of your day. And enjoy the popcorn that you will definitely be in the mood for after this. So, or maybe that's just me. I need to eat, clearly. I think I get to meal or something. All right. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and close down our call, or close our recording anyway. Bye.
Thank you, Emma.